welcome to today's video. In today's video, we're going to be discussing glycolysis and basically what that is. So I'm basically going to break down the 2 phases, explore 10 steps, and see why it's relevant to the carnivore lifestyle. As you can see in this graphic right here, you're going to see a cell. And in that cell, you're going to see some fluid, and that's called the cytoplasm, and that's actually where glycolysis takes place. So glycolysis is the process by which our cells break down 1 molecule of glucose, which is a 6-carbon sugar, into 2 molecules of pyruvate, each with 3 carbons. So this process occurs in the cytoplasm of the cell and is unique because it does not require oxygen, making it an anaerobic process. It's divided into 2 main phases, the energy investment phase and the energy payoff phase. So by the end of glycolysis, the cell gains a small amount of usable energy, what we call ATP and NADH. This energy can be used immediately or processed further in the presence of oxygen. As you can see in this diagram as well, it's going to show you the glucose entering a cell and splitting into the 2 pyruvate molecules. The next diagram that we're going to talk about is going to show you the stages of what I'm going through, the different steps. The energy investment phase consists of the first 5 steps of glycolysis, and here's what happens. So the enzyme hexokinase phosphorylates glucose, turning it into glucose 6-phosphate. This uses 1 ATP molecule. Now remember, ATP is energy, so it has to use energy to do this. So the second step is glucose 6-phosphate is converted to fructose 6-phosphate by the enzyme phosphoglucose isomerase. So the next step, phosphofructose kinase phosphorylates fructose 6-phosphate to form fructose-1 6-bisphosphate. Another ATP molecule is used here. Next, the enzyme aldolase splits that fructose-1 6 into 3 carbon molecules. So next, the enzyme aldolase splits fructose-1 6 into 2 3 carbon molecules, DHAP and G3P. Then the enzyme taurase phosphate isomerase converts the DHAP into another G3P molecule, leaving 2 G3P molecules ready for the next phase. So at this point, the cell has actually used up 2 ATP molecules, so think of it as an investment to prepare glucose for energy production later. So next comes the energy payoff phase, where the cell starts reaping the rewards of that cycle that we just talked about. So each G3P molecule is oxidized to 1,3-biosphosphate glycerate, producing 1 NADH per molecule. So you get 2 NADHs total. Next, that donates a phosphate group to a ADP, forming ATP. This step is catalyzed by a phosphoglycerate kinase. 2 ATP molecules are produced here. So next, 3-phosphoglycerate is converted to 2-phosphoglycerate by phosphoglycerate mutase. So next, the enzyme enolase removes a water molecule from the 2-phosphoglycerate, forming a phosphoenopyruvate, PEP. So next, the PEP donates its phosphate group to an ADP, forming another ATP per molecule of PEP. This step, catalyzed by pyruvate kinase, results into 2 ATP molecules. So by the end of this phase, the cell has gained 4 ATP molecules and 2 NADH molecules. But after subtracting the 2 ATP molecules that we had used earlier, the net gain is 2 ATPs and 2 NADHs. Okay, this next diagram shows the difference between aerobic and anaerobic. Anaerobic is without oxygen, aerobic is with oxygen. So what happens to the pyruvate after glycolysis depends on if oxygen is available or not. If oxygen is present, pyruvate enters the mitochondria and is converted into acetylcholine to fuel the citric acid cycle, which is also known as the Krebs cycle. This is a part of the anaerobic respiration, which produces much more energy. So in the absence of oxygen, pyruvate is converted into lactate through a process called fermentation. This allows glycolysis to continue by regenerating NAD+, but it's less effective in terms of energy production. So this diagram shows the difference between glycolysis and gluconeogenesis. So for those of us that follow a low-carb diet, such as the carnivore diet, glycolysis operates differently due to limited glucose availability because our carb intake is really low. So in these states, the body relies on gluconeogenesis, which produces glucose from the non-carbohydrate source to fuel necessary glycolysis reactions. Alternatively, the body shifts to ketogenesis, producing ketone bodies as our primary energy source, reducing the need for glycolysis. This metabolic flexibility is one reason ketogenic and carnivore diets can be effective for energy and mental clarity. So that's basically glycolysis in a nutshell. It's a fundamental process that provides energy both anaerobic and aerobic. Whether you're fasting on a low-carb diet or eating a standard American diet, glycolysis plays a critical role in how our body processes energy. And like always, don't forget that like button, make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon.